Welcome to Etherwaves. This is a podcast or YouTube show or video podcast or something. We don't know. This is our first season. But we're doing something, and it involves the beer and gear and music. And eventually we'll talk about our fears and shed tears. And all that other good stuff. And then we'll play a set after we get through that therapeutic session. So after that annoyingly long intro, I'm Teddy.
And I'm Igor.
And I'm Phil, and very delighted to introduce my great friend and bandmate, Mr. Adam White. Welcome to episode 9, Adam.
Hello, fellows. Gears, tears, fears, beers, smears, leers.
Leers.
What are you drinking tonight, Adam?
I'm drinking a throwback to, I believe, episode 7, chamomile tea out of a tarot card cure cup. Can you see that?
Ooh.
Very emo. Very
I
precious.
love that.
Double fisting. My other hand is LaCroix Limoncello.
Oh, that's the best, LaCroix. That's
right,
the best.
I like
That's the
Igor
best.
already. It is the best.
Because you can actually get a taste. The way I think about these like water drinks is when you drink something and somebody yells a fruit and then you remember the taste of the fruit while you're drinking water. That's to me like how every water flavored drink tastes like, except the limoncello LaCroix. That's good.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, if I can go next, I am debuting my wife's favorite beer. It's Around the Bend Vera, which is a pistachio ale that is phenomenal. This beer blows my mind, and it's not high content alcohol. Playing safe today, so I don't make any mistakes. It is only 4.5%, I believe. 5%, good enough.
What was last episode for you? Were you at 9?
It was 9.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
We were doing some rocket fuel last time.
How about
what are you drinking?
Well, I was inspired by a follower of the show. I'm going to give this guy a shout out. His name is on Instagram. His name's Mirology. And follower of the show, big fan of the show. And he was posting on Instagram the other day about Mars Brewing and how they made I guess it's their third synthesizer themed beer, or maybe their fourth actually, because they have one called Synthesizer Showroom, I think. And then they have this one called like Pitch Shifter, which has a bunch of like pedals and stuff on it. And then they had one that you can like scan it, and the side of it has these symbols on it, and it takes you to an app where you can like play the can as a drum sequencer or something like that. And their latest kind of nod, the guy at the brewery was telling me about this, but their latest nod to kind of the beautiful marriage between synthesizer and craft beer culture is it is called Moog Juice, and it has a Moog synthesizer. You got oscillators on there, controllers, a mixer, modifiers, output. Like it looks beautiful. You got the patch cables hanging down at the top of the can. Really beautiful sticker and can art on there. The artist is Louis Capozzoli. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Yeah, but Louis Capozzoli. But yeah, Moog Juice, West Coast IPA. It is fruity. It is fresh. It's 7%, so I'm not going nuts tonight, but I'm not going session. And I might need it. I think I always need a little boost if I'm going to tickle the microphone. And I might be doing that during my set. So,
Now, let me just make a comment, Phil, before I ask about your beverage. How do you feel about a Moog beer be a West Coast IPA? How do you feel about that personally? How does that impact your life?
You're asking me?
I mean, yeah, I'm asking you because you're a Moog and then you're a rack user. So
yeah, I mean, Sierra Nevada is based in California, but they have their Asheville location as well. So I feel like at this point there is no coast. I don't acknowledge coasts. I live in flyover territory. So when I am in my private jet, thank you, Heineken. Yeah, no, like I don't do the coastal thing. I don't care. I am, by the way, going to work with a low pass gate tonight. So I guess that's a nod, or supposed to be a nod to West Coast style. But
Yeah.
I don't
Crazy.
care. I don't care about all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, dude, coasts are just a social construct anyways, dude, you know, like
Yes, they are.
just dude, they don't really exist. It was just something invented by the government to like geographically place people in this world. So
Agreed. So, Phil, what are you drinking?
Alas. I've got another selection from Black Horizon Brewing Company in Willowbrook, and this time it's the Midnight Fist Fight, and it's a hazy IPA. Quite nice, local beer,
all right. Big boys.
and it's delicious. So welcome to the show, Adam. I want to know what you're listening to, because that's always what we go into next, and you always have great stuff.
Thank you. I'm kind of obsessed with Nick Cage again. He just released an album with Warren Ellis, and it's beautiful. It's called Carnage. Highly recommended. Like, I can't stop listening to it. It's been like 2 weeks now. You guys have inspired me to go back to some old school kind of like synthy digital realm. Oval, Marcus Pop. You ever hear of him? Thrill jockey artist, mid-90s, just great guy. Let's see what else. Burial, I've been hitting Burial. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Burial.
I'm a huge Burial fan. I love Burial so much.
Untrue. I don't know, like, I'm hitting it again. Another guitar player named Marissa Anderson just released a record with a drummer named Jim White from the Dirty Three, fantastic Australian musician. They just did a collaboration that's really fantastic. So those four things have been kind of like in my ears for the last 3 weeks. Good stuff. How about you guys?
Well, before I want to just interrupt you, Igor, because I cannot let you get away with a Jim White reference, because he is probably the first drummer I actually like really paid attention to as a brush player outside of like the purely jazz, sort of lingo. And he's an amazing brush player, but he can also like play the brushes like he's playing like loud rock. And I love Jim White. Yeah. So Igor, do you know Jim White or?
I do not. That's someone that clearly I need to check out. I know I talk about K.O.Dot a lot, but they had one album called Blue Embassy Downward, where the entire drum session was played, not with brush, but the wooden stick-ish, whatever that kind of stick's called. So it's like a softer tone, but it is rock, it is jazzy. It's probably their jazziest record. And I'm a huge fan of that, the drums playing. And it's the drummer from a metal band that I'm never going to remember the name of, playing drums for K.O.Dot because their drummer had left. So they brought in like a guest drummer who is a metal player to play jazz in an abstract rock album. And I love that record so much. It's one of my favorites by them. But on what I'm listening to recently, other than these two beauties right here, I recently discovered a duo. They're husband and wife. They've been playing music since the 80s. They've been in orchestras and in ensembles, and they are both from the Czech Republic. Their name is Irina and Wojtek Havlovi. They last Friday released a compilation of their best music, and that compilation has literally blown my mind. I bought the album. It comes from the Netherlands, and it will be a while before it gets here, so I have nothing to show. But I highly recommend that duo. They're incredible musicians. Yeah. How about you, Teddy? What are you up to these days?
I've been getting heavy lately. Like, I've been listening to some heavier stuff. You know, I have a playlist on Spotify that I make that just kind of shuffles through heavier tunes that I enjoy. And it goes anywhere from things like the Human Abstract to ISIS to like the thing that came on today that because I leave it on shuffle. And a couple years ago, I really got into two bands, Knocked Loose and Harm's Way. Their music is so heavy and so aggressive, and it just makes me just want to have strength. Like when I listen to it, I'm just like, I am like 100 times stronger than I actually thought I was. And it helps me find this like internal strength, whether that is to like do the dishes or to like lift weights or whatever it is. And so they're a really motivating group for me. But yeah, so that's what I've been into is Harm's Way. That's really what I've been listening to that on repeat. And then we just got masters back for Kayaks, for our second EP for Kayaks. So I've been listening through those. They were mastered by Rob Smirsiak. And yeah, so I've been listening to that kind of on the side as well.
So yeah, I'm really glad you brought up ISIS because I had the great fortune to be able to play some shows with them with my old band, The National Acrobat. And this was, like the late 90s or early 2000s. I was still in college, and when I saw them play, they were really loud, but like they managed to have a really clear sound, like really groove oriented, heavy, and they pulled it off like perfectly. They just had like really melodic, heavy riffs, and I've always loved that band. Great guys, and a great live sound too. I was always impressed that they could pull it off live, as well as like the record sounded like so good. So second, the ISIS, and I haven't listened to them in a while, so definitely going to go back and check them out. But I was thinking about Adam coming on the show and going back to kind of like how we met, and I was thinking about our connections. And so I pulled out some old LPs this week, and I got two here by one of my favorite artists, Tara Jane O'Neill. And she's an old Louisville player who was in a band called Rodan, and that kind of has a Adam and Phil connection. But Rodan was an amazing band that like really started me off in that kind of Louisville indie rock scene, and I got to credit my sister Jane for getting me into that. Like I owe a great debt of gratitude to her for that. And
Phil's Family back on the. Yeah. I feel like we took a break from talking about Phil's Family.
No, like my brother got me into like rap and stuff, but my sister put me down the road of like this music. And actually, I got my first drum set from a guy named Forrest Kuhn because my sister was friends with him, and he played in a band called Sunspring. And anyways, Tara Jane O'Neill, check her out. All of her records are really great.
She's still putting out a lot of music.
Oh yeah. And that ultimately like makes me think of you, Adam, and like how we met and how we even know each other. And I'm not even sure I know how we met or when exactly it was. Like, do you remember?
It all goes back to a fellow named Gorf. Jeff Mueller is a great friend of ours. He is also a Louisville slugger. He was in a band called Juna 44, Rodan, and Shipping News. And he moved to Chicago. I met him about a year after he moved. And then I think Phil came in 2007-ish. And I want to say we met in 2008. And you introduced yourself to Jeff at a show and asked if he ever needed a drummer in any future projects. And he said, yes, I'm actually working on some music with Adam White. And then I think the first time we met was in my humble garage in Humble Park. Am I correct? We're getting old. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think I had seen him at a Shellac show, which was awesome, by the way. Check out Shellac. And I remember showing up to your garage with a 2-piece kit that I had gotten at, what is the name of that drum shop downtown? Steve Maxwell. I don't know if any drummers are out there, Chicago drummers, but Steve Maxwell's drum shop downtown was like a big deal. I went in there and I bought this Rogers bass drum, mid 60s Dayton era, blue Strata bass drum, 20 by 14. And then I had a snare drum that I got as a Radio King, an old Radio King that was actually Chicago made. And I bought both of those drums from Steve Maxwell, and we played with 2-piece kit, ride cymbal, and hi-hat, and that was it.
Yeah,
Fun times.
Simple times.
Now, can I be just a very quick fanboy here? Because Brazilian teenage Igor was a huge June 44 fan in Brazil, without having any idea that I would be in chat right now talking about June 44. So, what is the connection?
How have we talked about this? I can't believe it. I've got to let Adam take this one.
Shipping News, I don't know if you're familiar with them. They used to practice in my metal shop. I had a metal shop in the 90s and early 2000s. And some of those records were actually written at the metal shop. June of 44 had long been disbanded, obviously. So I'm trying to think. I met Jeff through a mutual friend and a neighbor named Brad Bowdy, who was an Indianapolis/Louisville guy. That worked at Touch and Go Records. So we became friends, and it was just, Chicago is an incestuous place, as you well know, as far as musicians go. And Jeff and I hit it off right away. And he's one of my favorite human beings on planet Earth. And I was a fan of June of 44 before I met him, so I was slightly starstruck, obviously, And but Shipping News, I love June of 44, but Shipping News was always really my jam. And Rodan, were definitely like heavy hitters in my youth. And as far as like the connection to Human Strange, 10 years later, Phil introduced himself to Jeff. Jeff and I were already playing together, just like a duo guitar thing. And because of Phil's introduction, of him just walking up to Jeff and being like, "You need a drummer?" Which is, when you look at like Phil's perspective, it was like kind of ballsy to do that. That's what I love about Phil. And of course, like, we immediately loved playing with him. But then Jeff moved to Connecticut because his wife got a job at Yale, and you don't turn down Yale when you get a job. And she's from Connecticut, so they've been in Connecticut since. And Phil and I continued and formed Human Strange. That's it.
Yeah, and I had no idea that you were a fan, Igor. So really glad to know that. But yeah, for me, that's like a thread that ties Louisville to Chicago. It's definitely one of the reasons I was really stoked to move here, because I think I mentioned how my wife Gina had decided to go to grad school, and I just blindly followed her after being together with her for like 6 minutes or whatever. And that was a great decision. And she was choosing between two schools. One was in New York and one was Chicago. And I was so glad that she chose Chicago and was like, yeah, I've got to get into that music scene. So yeah, June of 44, Jeff, Shipping News, all that like ties those two cities together for me.
Yeah, it's really interesting, like just a little nostalgic actually, how that whole like post-hardcore scene was a big deal in Brazil, and none of those bands would go down there. And now it's like a big meme, right? Come to Brazil. But it's true, like the fan base in Brazil, they love their music. And I also saw another meme that was pretty funny with Have a Nice Life, which is a band that I really adore. They posted like small artist and then like a bunch of hands saying Brazilian fan base, because Brazil we love our music, and we love when artists come in. We don't know any idea what the lyrics mean, and we're screaming them out of our lungs with a beautiful Brazilian accent. But we the whole like rock scene in from the US and small bands, like they shine in Brazil. It's really cool.
If I may kind of segue in to talking about Human Strange, because I'm a big fan. I've worked with you guys a few times on a few things and really enjoyed that time together and kind of getting to see the behind the scenes. I hung out in Adam's garage at one point, which felt like this very like creatively sacred place. And it was just like a beautiful, warm experience. It kind of beckons beckons back to these like really good memories pre-COVID and everything like that, of just kind of the freedom of like showing up with a buddy at a buddy of a buddy's garage and being like, you want to do some creative stuff and hanging out. And so I want to dive a little bit into Human Strange and the work that you guys have put out, because it is, in my opinion, it's very timely, it's very meaningful, but it's also very timeless. And I really appreciate that. I think each album, to me, kind of creates these little time capsules of what we're going through in the world, but it's not hyper specific to the point where you can't relate to it or where you can't find additional meanings. There's this artistic quality to it that I find very unique to your albums. Now you guys have put out you've released 3 records, right? Like two physical digital copies, and then one that's just digital that just came out within the last couple months, right?
Yes. Phil, you want to talk?
Well, I mean, yeah, when the pandemic hit us, we really wanted to release something that was special, and related to that. And Adam probably should talk about that too, because he writes all the lyrics. But we somehow managed to, I got an interface and figured out how to record drums okay. And our wonderful favorite engineer in Louisville, Anne Gauthier of La La Land, she mixed it for us remotely, so that was a lot of fun. That's just like a 2-song EP. But yeah, Adam,
hold on a second. Hold on. That 2-song EP was not recorded down in Louisville? Like you guys recorded that kind of remotely and then just sent it down?
Yeah, we did.
It sounds great.
Amazing.
I was blasting it in the car today. I was on my way home and like from the grocery store, and I was like blasting it in the car today, and I thought it was a really well mixed and engineered record. And I had known that you guys had, because did you take a trip down to Louisville as of recent for new material as well?
Yeah, we've been going we made 2 trips down to Louisville. We're working on our 3rd record, and we just got back recently, like, I don't know, how long has it been? Getting crazy with time, like a month ago. But yeah, if anyone gets credit on that EP sounding great, it's Anne. Like, she's just magical. Like I don't know if we're ever gonna go to another engineer. Like, Anne just knows how we work and just is so fast and makes everything happen for us. Like, she's almost like a 3rd member of our band for sure.
And she engineered the other 2 albums, right? Your first 2 as well, right?
Well, the first one, it was 2 engineers, because the original owner and founder of La La Land, the studio in Louisville, is a guy named Kevin Ratterman. And Kevin played in a bunch of bands from Louisville back in the day, and he moved to California, but he recorded some of my old bands, the National Acrobat, and I had a lot of experience working with him, and I knew the space, and I knew we could like stay for free in Louisville essentially. And I trusted Kevin. So Kevin and Anne engineered the first record.
Yeah, one of the things that calls, and I'm going to be very specific on this record right here, the second LP, is the meat of it: the dual, the heavy, the grace. First of all, I love how the name sequence works, but sound-wise, I love that middle section so much. Can you talk a little bit about just those 3 songs and how they are thought in sequence, or they thought in sequence, or that placement was just random? What's the story behind those 3 tracks specifically?
That's a wonderful compliment. Thank you very much. That's kind of like my favorite spot of the record as well. There's a moment in the Grays, the intro, which might be my most favorite thing we've done. And sometimes Phil kind of bashes it because it gets too loud, but there's the intro and that particular song that's just like, I kind of don't know if I need to do any more music after that. It's just a 4-note, just pummeling, like, brutal sound in your ears, and that particular is probably the highlight of the record for me. But other than that, those 3 things were in. it's kind of like the narration portion of the record to where I don't want to give too much away. Like lyrical interpretation is a dangerous thing when a person who authored, the lyrics comes out and gives meaning to it. But essentially, like that is kind of like in the middle of the journey, and it was meant to be, especially with the duel. And I don't really know if we wrote it into context of it coming in that order, but certainly when we had all the songs, it made the most sense to put it in that order. I think that's all I can really say about it, really.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's like I said, that spot in the record always like brings me a smile. And you're right, like the Grace, that intro is so good. It's such a good song.
Adam, I want to kind of dive into your vocal stylings, because to me, I mean, before meeting you and before hearing Human Strange, I don't think I really had any anchors to say this guy sounds like blank. And I still don't. Like, to me, your vocal delivery on these albums it's a very unique one, and I find it to be essential to set the tone for the records and for the songs on the records, and then to deliver the lyrical content, which like you're saying, like there's definitely intent and meaning that you're writing them. You're writing into the lyrics, but then there's also this like gifted meaning that people can interpret on their own. But when you deliver your lyrics, I sometimes feel like you're almost just like sitting down and having a conversation with me in a really beautifully melodic way. Like it's almost. Yeah, but that's how it feels. Like I have these wonderful polyrhythms coming at me from Phil, and then there's these loops going on that you're setting, and maybe some synthesizer things going on from Phil and whatnot, and bass lines that are layered in there, and your guitar work. And then so you set this stage, and then out comes Adam to then speak with me, and then it creates this really imaginative way of having someone articulate thought and meaning that I really don't have any grounding for, or any anchor for. And I think that's probably why I'm such a huge fan of Human Strange, is because of all of those layers and complexity. It gives the albums a lot of replay value and a lot of re-listening value. So I guess I'm wondering, like, was the vocal styling and the way that you sing on the records and within Human Strange, is that something that, was that an intentional choice? Is that like a very natural thing to you? Is that if you could just kind of speak on like how you deliver these wonderful lyrics that you write. I've always been fascinated by that and really enjoyed your delivery. So if you could speak a little bit just on like how you landed on that.
It's strange to speak about it because I am probably one of the most reluctant singers that I've come across, and even in my own bands. Like sometimes I wonder why I still do it. I almost prefer music that has no lyrics, you know what I mean? And some of, like when I was just talking about Nick Cage, when I listen to some of these magicians of lyric content, like I kind of wonder why I bother, because the singers that I do listen to are just on such a different level that when I sing, there's a part of me that thinks I'm holding on to my youth. Like, this is still a punk rock endeavor, like we're playing kind of loud instruments, and I'm kind of irritated about the world's conditions and speaking, of what I think is unjust. But like, I think that's probably what it is. If it's anchored in anything, it's still wanting to remain somewhat youthful, opinionated, and kind of like relevant. But I don't always know, like, if I could take authorship of it. Like, I think it happens, almost everything that I write always goes through Phil. Like, I make sure that he reads all the lyrics, and most of the time he corrects my grammar because he's very good at it. but it's a weird thing. Like, you know, you get into like the who's really writing the music sometimes. Sometimes I just feel like I'm a conduit. Like each song's slightly different, but really, like, I think the older I get, I'm 46 years old now, you know, and I've been doing this for a long time. And like, it's such a sacred gift that I still have any music coming out of me, that like, I am very hesitant to take any authorship over it, especially lyrical content. Like, yeah, I feel those things and I believe some of those things, but kind of like, it's almost a character I play sometimes, or it's just something that is being channeled through me. Like, you've known me well enough, Teddy, to know that like, my sense of humor and how I behave may be in opposition with the guy you may hear on those records, you know? Like my genuine like life and attitude and being a dad and like just going about my business, like, is not necessarily that narrator of Human Strange. But I love that you say that you feel like you're being talked with and not talked to. Like I try to, although it sounds preachy sometimes, some of the stuff that I'm doing, I try very much to like lit you into like a current feeling. Like I used to be hesitant on talking about topical things, but now I think it's super important to talk about topical things if you're going to put lyrics through a microphone in the age of what we just dealt with in the past 4 years. I mean, really, like just in a nutshell, what really put fire under Phil and our ass was like the election of Donald Trump. Sadly, thanks Donald. Fuck, like. Like really, like we were like angry and just like needed each other, and like next thing you know, we were writing a record, and 2 or 3 years later, we just kept going. So,
oh yeah, well, and I think you just in speaking about it, it is this narration. It is this narration of these maybe inner thoughts that you have and that Phil has as it's being channeled through him. And I've been lucky enough to kind of sit in when I was kind of doing some visual work for you guys. I had the chance to sit in and see you guys kind of talking through lyrics. And that was really fascinating to me, because you're kind of seeing how the chef makes the sausage, you know, like you're like, I hear the end product, and, you know, most people hear the end product, but not many people get to hear the musical process and see it live from a band that you really ever hear recorded. And I'm curious, and maybe Phil, you can dive in on this, or feel free to defer to Adam. But when you guys come, like, who is there like someone that generally comes with a concept, or is it kind of mutual, where sometimes Adam comes with a riff, or sometimes Phil comes with a beat? Or I know, Phil, you've been kind of contributing more melodically a little bit more. What's the writing process for the two of you like? What is that generally like?
Some of the early stuff, we had some leftover parts that were, you know, going back to the days when we were playing with some other people. We already mentioned Jeff Mueller, and there was another guy named Joe Partika, and he's still sort of in the band in the sense we have a sampler that we call Partika. And there's a lot more to say about that, but I want to follow up on something Adam said about playing the role of like a character, because we haven't really talked about this, but there is like a Russian connection to this band. And so Adam already brought up Donald Trump, and there's the whole Russia thing and whatever. And we have samples from Putin and Chomsky, and there's like some stuff about Russia on there, but I think we want to be really careful here and like emphasize that we don't have like some kind of didactic message. We're not trying to go out and preach or teach lessons, and we definitely don't like want to take ourselves too seriously, even when the lyrics do get intense or like deal with like the state of the world, as Adam was talking about. Like, and that actually like goes back to some debates from the 19th century in Russia. And not to go off on a tangent, but like we're all, I think, big fans of Russian literature, and you know, Dostoevsky, for example, would write these wonderful novels with these intense ideological debates that were very much steeped in the issues of, you know, revolutionary or pre-revolutionary Russia. And in some cases, he created characters that were the most powerful characters in his novels, but went totally against his personal views. So in many ways, like he thwarted his own polemic. And so we don't have like a polemic. But as far as like the music is concerned, yeah, both of us come in with riffs. Sometimes I have like a little synth thing, and sometimes Adam has some guitar or bass lines even. And I think we both contribute like very much equally as far as that is concerned.
Absolutely. I second that.
And Igor, since you mentioned the duel, I will say, like, fun fact about like behind the scenes Human Strange stuff, we actually use this app called Polynome Pro, and we had all these like time signature things going on in that song, and had to use that app to assist us. And it was a lot of fun, and it very challenging to like record that properly, and it took a few takes, but
Just a couple, I'm assuming.
yeah.
It's a few.
Just the two. That's why it's called the duel.
Well, speaking of getting some recordings and performances, and you know, I'm eager to hear some tunes. What do you say we dive in?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Good.
Let's do it. Igor, you're opening, yeah?
Let's do it.
Okay. Life update. Someone's got something they need to share.
You said fanboy, Igor, but toy boy now.
Hey.
Hold up. Whoa.
What's up? What's up, dude?
What's going on?
What do you got? What do you got cooking over there? What are you cooking up in that kitchen?
So I got the Genki Wave, which is a wearable, for movement response CV sent to the system. Depending on how my hand moves, it responds differently. It also hears the impact. That's when you saw like me doing this for the kicks and the sidechain part. And there's also a button that you can press to get some bass. Well, in my case, I set up as a bass. So there's a gate trigger on the ring itself. And it was a wearable performance. So the cool thing about it, though, it's like it's a MIDI device, or it's a wireless MIDI device. So you don't have to have a module for it. You can just use it with any DAW, anything that receives MIDI. There's also a tool that you can buy in addition to this that is a MIDI jack that you plug into any synth, and whatever you do connects to that thing. So it's interesting. I've been enjoying it a lot. I've been using it for 2 days.
What's your connection to your modular with it? Like, so how you have it on your finger, and then how are you controlling your modular?
So they also have a module called the Wavefront, which is a 6 output 4 HP module that connects to any MIDI device that does wireless MIDI. So I was using it with my iPad before. I've been using it for months with my iPad, and I realized it's not fun to play on the iPad. They ran a winter sale over the ring. It comes from Iceland, and they're very proud to say they're the only modular companies in Iceland. And they were running a sale, and I was like, you know what? I like Wavefront a lot. I like the potential. I just don't like the interface that I'm using, which is the iPad. So decided to wear my instrument.
So you could do like radically different sounds. I mean, like it totally blew my mind when you did that bass drummy sound, and I wish I could just walk in any place, anytime, and just do that whenever I want. But
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you can, so that is like it's the trigger. So it has like a one gate, not a hold gate type of thing that responds to impact. So I can clap, I can do whatever I want. And even if I do movements like this very rapidly, you capture that as well. So that you can just trigger anything. And with the CV motion, you can calibrate how far you want that CV to go. So technically, I can even use this to play melodies. And as long as I quantize the melody and I keep it at short range, I can play like this. It's just instead of turning knobs, you're moving your hand, essentially. But you can do that with five movements and control 5 different things, which mainly I controlled sample, reverb, and bass.
Are the signals that it sends, are they, like, I'm just trying to think about, like, would you be able to play chords with it on a polyphonic synth?
Theoretically, I mean, if you use like, however, well, you have to quantize all the CVs, and then, you know, this movement is going high on one note, this movement going high on another note, and this movement high on another note. Why not? Yeah, you just have to like do this. But if you quantize everything to the same scale, why not? Yeah, should be doable.
So what was the experience like? Because I'm assuming, like you said, you've had it for 2 days. I'm sure you've been kind of messing around with it on your own. You know, we were talking about me listening to metal music with like the fake microphone and like kind of moshing on my own. But doing it in front of your peers and kind of performing with it, I'm sure has a whole nother feeling to it. Talk about that a little bit. What was it like to incorporate that movement and that kind of like magical, almost like summoning of sound? What did that feel like to you? What did you experience?
It was a lot of fun. So the first thing that I said before we started recording was, I need to get up for this. It's just because how it's set up to certain movements. I need to have some space around it. But I programmed the patches in a way that so 2 movements, I know exactly what I'm doing. And 1 is somewhat random on purpose because I wanted to react when I didn't like how random it got, right? So a lot of times you'd see me like going this way and I'm like, oh, I don't like where this is going. So I have to bring it back. It forces me to add movement to my performance. Not everything is planned. Definitely did not plan how the structure was going to go. That wasn't even a real structure through it. It was more of a, hey, here are a bunch of sounds that I'm having fun with. But the only thing that I do want to incorporate more is whenever I bring my set live, how can I make it more interesting? And this is potentially the solution. Like I would love to play a modular set where I am moving and not looking like this, right? There's a lot of fun in that, but I think when you move a certain way and the sound reacts to how you did it, people are like, oh, what'd he do there? Like I like that. That's what I like about it. Like I move a certain way, he responds that way, and that response is interesting to me.
Theremin 2.0.
Absolutely. Last question from me, because I'm just so fascinated by it. Then we can dive into other sets or whatever. Other people can, grill you. But what would happen if you put 5 of those rings on? Can you calibrate 5? Like if you had one on each finger, would you be able to pound your chest and trigger 5 samples all at once theoretically? Would you need 5 modules to receive those 5 inputs?
Correct. So the way it works is you can have X number of modules plus rings. They do sell a pair of rings because they would like people to use it with both hands. I still like turning knobs, so I'll have always my knob hand and my ring hand if I bring this live. But the way they do it is it pairs the ring to the closest module whenever you press the button on the module and on this. And so theoretically, yeah, if you could keep one close, if you keep the modules apart, you would know exactly how to respond to each, but you could potentially.
I need to get in the market.
Great question.
Need to get in the market of toe rings, dude. That's what they need. That's what they need to whip out next. So then you could have 20 MIDI controllers. If you got all your phalanges, dude, you're rocking.
Someone has to say cock ring. Okay.
21. You can have 21. 21, and then they even have one attached to a hula hoop that you can just. Yeah. So 22 total. If you really want it to be a fully ring controlled thing. Igor, I'm blown away, man. That was so cool.
I actually want to jump in here because when I think I was in 2nd grade and there was I'm going to mention my sister again because in her class at our Catholic grade school, St. Margaret Mary, there was a drummer named Aaron Montgomery. He also later worked at a drum shop in Louisville called Mom's Music. And the first time I ever was interested in drums was not from hearing the drum set, but seeing Aaron Montgomery play the drums at this talent show at St. Margaret Mary when I was in 2nd grade. And the thing that really drew me in was him hitting the bell of the ride. And Adam and I have a long-standing love for random bell ride hits at band practice, just to make sure Adam's not falling asleep over there. I'll sometimes randomly hit the bell of the ride, but I mean the bell of the ride is cool sounding, whatever. But to watch a drummer, it's a very physical instrument. So I've always been really drawn in by drummers and watching really badass drummers. So to see you, Igor, bring it back to your performance now, watching you do that was so cool. And I think the element that could bring to a live set, that could really potentially be super engaging for the audience. And not that matters all that much. In the end, does it sound good? Do I like the music? I mean, that's more important probably, but this still, I think, puts another layer into the whole thing. And I don't know, you looked really cool, I gotta say.
Yeah, that I did it for the looks. No, but at the same time, I love to have fun while I play, and this is borderline toy. Like, it's fun. It's just a fun instrument to have, and if you because you can program it different ways, right? You can patch into whatever you want. So if you place in a knob that you like to turn, but instead of turning that knob, you do this. But then there's that other knob that you wouldn't be able to reach because you only have two hands. But now you can do that as well, and it follows both movements, right? It follows all four movements. It's just fun. That's all it is. It's just a lot of fun.
So cool. Well, do we move forward from this kind of tinkering, this reveal of this toy / musical instrument into our next set? We have.
So I take it you guys had no idea that Igor was going to bust this thing out. Okay.
No.
Phil had a hint.
Is that module that you sent through earlier?
No, actually, the module that I sent earlier is the Muscle, which Daddy, I had recommended that for you. That is the sidechain compressor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That is, it's insane. It's insane. It's such a good compressor.
Well, yeah, Igor had sent me a teaser video yesterday, but without indicating that he would be using it today. And so I was hoping that he would, but he was being super cryptic about it. So I'm really glad that you busted that out.
Classic Igor and his secrets.
Soon you know about my family.
My precious.
Adam said in the chat, like, early on in your performance, one ring to rule them all, and I was like, oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
One ring to rule all the modules.
What do you say, Adam? You wanna throw down some tunes?
Let's do it.
I love this show. Just if I will watch these episodes over and over again just to see musicians that I really enjoy as musicians and as people, like just to have this moment in time captured is so special. And that was so special to have you perform that, Adam. There was a story being told in that performance. I don't know if that was intentional, if there was an intended vibe or story that you were going for, but like, I don't know. There was this soundtrack of like, at least to me, the way I felt it was like someone was like struggling to get up a hill or struggling to get over some obstacle or some barrier. And there were like moments of trembling and like fear of like, I'm not going to get over this. But then also like, there was, I think when the tone changed in your guitar for me, it was like this moment of like, you see that hand kind of like, it's like, just like you thought they were going to fall, but then they like come back and they're like, nah, fuck it. I'm doing it. And that was like one of many visualizations or like synesthetic experiences I had while listening to that. And it was, it's just so special to have musicians on. I think you may be a first for Etherwaves as well, being the first kind of guitar forward performer on here, which I think made this even more special. Phil, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been jealous of guitar players for having these like really crazy looking pedal boards, but one thing I love about what you do, Adam, is that you kind of have a almost like disdain for like pedal boredom, and you don't want to be like a pedal guy, but you have like some cool stuff that you do with pedals. But in the end, like I was talking in the chat about like how you almost never play with a pick. Did you have a pick tonight? You didn't have any pick, right? I mean, no. That's one of the things I love about you is that you're really focused on the sound of your guitar, and that's first, and that is central. But you also did some things tonight that I've never really like heard you do before, like that stuff at the beginning with the like tapping.
New pedals. Believe you guys call it gas. Yeah, it works on this guitar players as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So what pedal was that?
That is just a kill switch. That's all it is. It's just a very sensitive finger sensitive kill switch. It just kills all tonality going through it. But you could create a rhythm pattern, obviously, by tapping it.
I think I saw too that I don't know if you posted about this today. Like you've been together with your wife for 23 years. Is that right?
Yeah, we on St. Patrick's Day. How awful is that? 23 years ago, we met on March 17th. Today.
And I brought that up because you talk about gas and getting gas, but like you also have a very supportive and loving wife. And she's even, I think, gotten you a couple pedals. Is that right? Or
yes, she has. She got me to Earthquake Devices, the most insane pedal I currently have, which
oh yeah, that's
the infamous Data Corruptor.
That's such a good pedal,
man. I need Phil to take gummies and explain this thing to me. Really, that's what I need.
There's a lot of things in this world that we all need Phil to take gummies and explain them to us.
Adam, what else
is going on in that?
Well, no. What else that your wife has gotten you? Is there? Yeah.
I mean, the last thing you heard, the guitar affected one, was the POG, the POG 2 by Electro-Harmonix, a polyphonic octave generator. That thing is just so fun. I got it so I could actually get bass tones, but of course you could get organ tones, which it used as a spice. It's really fun. That was given to me from Valerie. And I recently purchased for myself the Boss RC500 sampler, the loop pedal, because as I heard you guys complain about the dittos, like I have a love-hate relationship with the dittos. And the last one I did throw in the trash.
Well done.
Yeah, so this Boss is kind of badass. So but that's about all. What's going on?
I don't mind the ditto for how I use my guitar because I'm not. I do a lot of like sound design loaded into Ableton, and I'll play that or I'll mangle that. So I don't care much about time being in sync. Usually I use it before my delay, so I relay my time element more into the delay pedal than I do the looper. But I agree that I can never gel with the ditto. Like I press it, it takes like a second and a half for it to engage the record. It tries to find a loop point, but it doesn't. It's just so strange. It's a fun pedal to have, a horrible pedal to rely on.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I love that Pog pedal that you mentioned, Adam. And since you've brought it into Human Strange, like since we are a guitar drums duo, it's really nice to be able to fill up the sonic space that's available. And to say nothing of like, oh, it's easy to schedule band practice as a duo. It's you got to cover the sonic space, and I love that you have the ability to do that, and that sounded really beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. That was a lot of fun to watch too. Just it seemed. So there's this musician, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite jazz musicians. His name is Hermeto Pascoal. He's Brazilian jazz, huge inspiration. But whenever he touches an instrument, it looks like he doesn't care about the sound it makes. He just wants to discover the instrument itself. It felt to me that you were discovering those guitar notes carefully and meticulously. You were telling the story, yes, but like the way you engage with the instrument and the pedals is just like it's a childhood-like perfection, if that makes any sense. Like it's like if the child made amazing music for the first time they touched an instrument. That's what it sounded like to me.
That's a very high compliment. That's exactly how I approach my instrument every time as a child. In awe.
Oh, but
exploratory, right? Yeah. Like and I think that's a beautiful relationship to have with your instrument.
Yeah.
Is to be able to, I don't know, ask it questions, and kind of like you were doing with the ring tonight.
Yeah, I call it musical innocence, and that's just something that I think about, right? Like I want to be an innocent musician. I want to know that if I'm playing all the white keys, I should have played a black key. But what if, right? That's like a musical innocence to me. Like you just like, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to touch that button. But what if? And that's how your set felt to me. But should we listen to more music? Because I feel like I want to hear more sounds.
Yeah, let's do it. Hey, y'all.
Whew. That was awesome.
Thanks for listening.
Can I make a comment that I have made before? I don't know which episode it was, but I called you a true synthesist. You treat your synthesizer like it should, and it just sounds so good. And I'll go a step further. This is top 3 fill set for me. Easy. Maybe top 2. Just amazing. This was great.
So I've been binging you guys. Episode 3 for Phil and this were my favorites. Episode 3 was out of like both these are top tier, and it's amazing like how far you have come in the amount of time that you've been snobbing it up. Like I call the knobs thing snobs. Like that's what I want Phil to call his project, snobs. But anyways, like it's like so inspiring, like how far you've come in such a short. You too, Teddy. Like you've gone bananas. Like you're fully in, and I love it. It's inspiring, like both of you. And Igor, I don't know your story as well, but like these two, to see like how far they've come in just like a relatively short amount of time is just kind of knocks me out. It's crazy.
It's impressive just from episode 1 to episode whatever this is. Like it's even there's a curve, and it's amazing.
Phil, I'm going to ask a question that I often ask because I think the person driving the car often knows what they like most about the car. You can feel the engine. You got the brake pedal and the gas pedal and the stick shift and everything vibrating through you as you're performing. What were some joyous moments in that set? What were some points in that set that just really brought you joy, brought you positivity, that brought you excitement? What were some things that you could explain to us?
Well, I want to just start by saying like thanks for listening, and thank you to all the listeners who are out there listening too. I know this is like these are long episodes, and I tend to play long pieces, and I appreciate the patience and all that. But for me, like the most joyful thing here is the learning experience and loving the process. And so Igor had sent me a patch, and this was just something I think, Igor, you were playing around with subharmonics, and I think I don't even remember why you did this, but I think you were just experimenting with different sounds, and it reminded me of this loop op video where he takes maths to create, to sort of like duplicate the Moog subharmonicon, which I don't have. And our good friend of the show, Bob Dixon, former guest, he has the subharmonicon, and I've always been fascinated by that. And so in any case, Loop Op has this great video where he uses DFAM as a sort of sequencer to get different harmonics out of just any kind of like sawtooth wave. And I think he's using a verbose oscillator, the harmonic oscillator, which I don't have, but I'm using the IntelliGel Dixie 2 Plus as my main oscillator, and it's going through maths. And without getting too deep into the explanation, like that was kind of the foundation. I was just like wanting to go back to the technique of trying to get that sound of the subharmonicon. So I kind of started with a really basic sequence using a chord in C major and exploring that sound with the DFAM. And then I used actually like every output on the Dixie 2 oscillator, which has 6 different waveforms. And so I was using all of those in that patch. So there's actually like a lot of long cables going on here. And you can kind of see like this guy, this is one of my long chords. It's like a 4 or 5 footer to get from this system into the other system. And so this is actually like one of my more involved patches, but it's surprisingly simple at the same time because it's really based around one melodic sequence. But then the Moog Grandmother 2 adds that kind of kind of
that arpeggio, man. That's we noted it because it's and important to talk about it because that arpeggio brought it all together. It gave a lot of like ambience to the sound. It gave a lot of feeling. It made the whole track moody in a way, and it was just amazing. That is like the glue for the track was that arpeggio. That was coming from the grandmother, right?
Yes, and I was very much inspired by Helen Vogelsinger. Once again, mentioning her and like I was actually using the envelope generator and playing around with the filter and kind of like trying to get a different shape going on with that. And then that was all running through the Strymon El Capistan, which is what I ended with that kind of endless repeaty thing. And that's how I closed it. But yeah, like I love that arpeggio and it's really just one chord the whole time. So
yeah, my guess was Magneto, but I guess I got the right company, the wrong tool. So that's funny.
Phil, do you ever think about your songs as breathing? Like as in like they are taking breaths, like inhaling and exhaling? Because I feel like maybe if it's subconscious or maybe it's conscious and intentional, but I feel like a lot of times the songs that you've performed on here at least have this very human element of breath, where there are these things that like count to 4 and exhale. You know, I'm assuming that they're LFOs that are, you know, kind of like time-based and maybe in sync with the clock or not, and maybe there's multiple breaths going on. But I think your use of those LFOs adds this, like you're playing with all electronic instruments, but it adds this very organic feeling that when I close my eyes, if I focus on one tone, I can breathe in with it and I can breathe out with it while there is all this other chaos going around. And I think that's one thing that I really appreciate about your music is it really kind of symbolizes and emulates what it's like to try to meditate while living in the city of Chicago. You know, like I sit in a room in my apartment and I maybe close my eyes and try to zone out. And if I don't have headphones on and have something to focus on, you know, sometimes all the noise, I can't really get into a headspace. But I feel like when I close my eyes and I zone out to your music, there are these distractions. But if I focus on one thing, I can really breathe with it. Do you ever think about breath or your instruments breathing or breathing in unison with your instruments while you perform them? And if so, can you talk on that a bit?
Yeah, dude. I know we were talking about like West Coast versus East Coast earlier, and I mentioned I was going to be using the low pass gate in this patch. And one thing I haven't used that much is the Make Noise LXD, which is, you know, low pass gate. And essentially, I think Igor, you have that module too.
It's one of my favorite things ever.
It's great. It's small and it does a lot. And so to your question, Teddy, like that opening portion of the song, and this is kind of like a cheap thing that I do and that I think I've been doing on the last few weeks, fading in and like having kind of a saturated ambient kind of thing and then introducing a drum part. And so that LXD was taking a wave from that said oscillator, the Dixie 2 Plus, and it was the sub output going through the LXD, but then Pamela's new workout giving the strike. So that was giving that percussive sound from the oscillator. So it was following the melodic sequence there. But then Mutant bass drum, a frequent friend of the show, Mutant bass drum was matching the rhythmic pattern there to kind of cut through the ambience, the saturation of that patch, like lots of reverb and delay there. And that kind of like, that kind of cuts through a lot of that saturation. I do think about that because as a drummer, I was always so annoyed playing in multiple bands with people who had full stacks and Ampeg refrigerator cabinets. But then I would also get annoyed going to see drummers that would just be like bashing ride cymbals and like letting them just go, get unhinged and just hogging the space. And then guitar players would play louder to try to defeat there was this like war between drummers and guitar players and bassists, and it was just like everything got so loud. And that's why I was like giving compliments to ISIS, like they pulled off a clarity of sound. So I'm always like self-conscious about that space. And I don't know, you used the word breath. I don't even know if I'm answering your question honestly, but like it's definitely something I think about in terms of like the space of the song, and like I'm really self-conscious of it.
So I think, Phil, from everything that you've played, I think this was the most like spectral, full thing that you've done. You covered every single element of a sound spectrum very nicely and tightly. Like it was spatial, but you're feeling the lows, you're feeling the mids, you're feeling the highs. He had a very good like sound cohesion to it. So it made me think of the Jumbo Henge a little, because it felt like that set would have all gone into Jumbo Henge and do that, and you don't have the module. So it's pretty impressive how you were able to achieve that really good separation of bands, of sound bands, and then get a cohesive set of it. And Adam, what did you think about sound in that set?
I can't help but when I hear Phil do some of these things, and if I start to love it, I have to like immediately not get selfish about it and want it in a human strange, Like, so sometimes when I listen to him, I'm slightly guarded. Like, I have to respect it. Like, this is Phil soloing essentially. You know what I mean? But like, because most of the time I hear Phil in the audio space, it's drums. So I instantly recognize there's rhythm patterns and how his brains work. That's totally Phil, even when he's in the synth world. And it's very comforting immediately. But I did notice Teddy, and I've binged your episodes. Like I've watched everything except the last one is posting today, I believe. I did not see the last one, which I think was 8. There is a breathing factor to Phil's. That was really interesting. You caught that, like the Phil's performances, not just in this space, but how he approaches his instrument. No matter what the instrument is, he allows breathing and allows space. And what he was just griping about, like an old man, get off my lawn, is that we talk about this endlessly. Like it's so important when you play with other players to always try to do less, and give the other person space to breathe, and that translates to breath and mindfulness is essentially what we're getting to in the meditation. So yeah, I do recognize it. The set was beautiful, but I am like Phil's biggest fanboy. Like Phil really does no wrong. Like I can't remember the last time I went, oh, like Phil, shut that shit off. You know what I mean? So like once again, kudos.
For sure. And I think on that point, when you're talking, like I know you and Phil have both talked about this. One of my, like this idea of like honing your craft doesn't mean that you're like this amazing soloist, unless that's like your role in the band to like wait your turn and then solo like crazy and kind of take over the song. But I think if you're truly comfortable with your instrument, not only can you step up to it and be exploratory with it and playful with it and interact with it and let it interact with you and kind of guide things. But I think the other thing is you know when not to play it and when to reserve your potential ability to run like a crazy arpeggio or like a crazy like shredding part or a drum fill or something like that, when to reserve those things. And I mean, I know this band is somewhat controversial to anybody that like saw them perform at, I think it was like a Chicago Bears tailgating event. This band Saves the Day. They had this album, Stay What You Are, that was the first time, because when I was getting into drumming in high school and getting into playing in bands and stuff, I remember I used to like sit down and like put headphones on and like try to play to songs. And I would try to play like, Blink-182 and Green Day and stuff like that. And then I remember sitting down and trying to play to Saves the Day. And one thing I noticed was I could never, their songs sound so simple. I was like, this is going to be a cakewalk. But I could never play their songs exactly right. And it was because of how reserved the drummer was and how locked in he was with the bassist, that there were always these little tiny things that would just kind of like, you'd be like, damn it, how did I miss that? And it was because he was so in tune with his instrument and so reserved and creating that space. And that's something that I think anybody early in their instrumental journey, that's something you got to figure out. And I know, like, and I appreciate the words you shared about kind of like the growth you've seen in Phil and I musically. But a year ago around this time, we went on this big trip with 6 other musicians to this cabin where we like MIDI synced all of our stuff up. And when I listen back to those recordings, which we haven't really done anything with, when I listen back to those recordings, I hear one thing quite often, and it's me throwing down a drum beat and a bass line and singing and playing a pad and playing a lead synth line all at once. And then there's 6 other musicians there being like, good one, Ted. And I'm like, come on, guys, jump in. And it's like, where, dude? Like, the pool is full. Like, where am I going to go swimming? You have all the lanes taken. So I think that, it just makes me reflect on my own like musical experience and need to grow in that manner, that like space and silence is so important. And I want to just bring it back to Human Strange. I think that is one thing that is really poignant in all of your releases, is that when Phil is loud, you're accompanying his loud, and when Adam is loud, Phil, you're accompanying his loud, and kind of like supporting each other's moment. And then there's times when you raise up together and come to, but it's just, there are these really beautiful baton passes in your albums that I think just kind of come to show your comfort levels with your instruments and with your positions and your group. So love that's where this conversation went, because it's something I've thought about organically.
Maybe we'll listen to Teddy play some music and play the drums, play the synth, play the bass, and play the pads, and just fill all that space.
There's a copper fence that's been contemplated before it wasn't needed. But now it's necessary. An addiction she's one. What are you doing? What are you doing? Take it out for air. What are you doing? What are you doing? I didn't take it out for air. These limbs I've lost will never grow again. These limbs I've lost to this. They'll never grow again. And if you feel like creating and pushing an envelope, simply don't.
Whoa.
Dude, Teddy, you normally like your vocals are all like part of the processing and there's like effects going on, but you had that moment at the end there where it was like raw and dry. You were like bearing your soul, and that was really cool because I don't think I've really ever heard you do that before. Love that ending.
That was the idea, was just to be like, all right, I know I'm like effects on my vocals, Dad, but I don't have to be that all the time.
When Darth Vader has his helmet off at the end there, when he's like, you see how sick he is. Not that you are a sick person, but there was like an exposed reality there that was like really awesome. It was really great. Thank you so much for playing what you just played. That was awesome.
Hell yeah.
I love when things feel private and you get to hear privacy of someone else's mind. That's what it felt like to me. You know what I mean? Like and that turn of phrase at the end, you know, if you want to push the envelope, simply don't. Like I'm a sucker for that. I try to ape that shit all the time. Like I love it. I love play on words and all that stuff. Like you got me. I'm a fanboy. So you won tonight. You had to bring the emo singing. Fucking fucked me up. That was great.
Oh man,
no, that was very special, Teddy. That was technically well executed, but I felt it. I felt the weight of the song. It felt again. I'll go back to my comment on Adam when you go like, you know, a childlike approach to music. This set felt like that for me, for what you do, because normally you play sets that are incredible and huge, and there's like this beat going, and there's which is beautiful in its own right. But this one, again, I felt the fragility. I felt that innocence, that musical innocence that I was talking about before. I felt that set. It was great. It was beautiful.
I think kind of like a point of vulnerability for me was I think I actually sang within my vocal range, what my normal vocal range is. And I think a big thing is like when you sing falsetto and you throw some auto-tune on it, potentially using the Helicon, it's like, it's going to sound cool. And there's like an artist that already does that. Bon Iver does that. And
Kanye?
yeah, so many artists do that. And so, and I think the thing, I think the thing is like a lot of people that have, because again, singing is a newer thing for me. And a lot of people that have like heard me sing have been like, oh, that's like a cool Bon Iver vibe that you're going with, which huge influence. And I love Justin Vernon and everything that he does. But I think to me, it's like, but I have a voice, like I'm obviously modeling off of a lot of what he does because I'm very inspired by him. But it's like, I have a voice too. And my voice is unique to me, and I should start feeling comfortable singing within it. And it's not going to be perfect right off the bat. This was like a very exploratory thing. Like the precipice of this song was I wanted to build strings. Like synthesizers can sound like strings, but I've never been able to get any of my synthesizing instruments to sound like an orchestra. And so there was it was basically, that was the idea, was like, I want to have a string movement. I want it to pass as a string movement and as like an orchestra backing me as I sing. And that was it. That's all I went into this with. I had like a beat programmed that like I intentionally had it drop out at certain times and just be kind of like echoey offbeat cymbals at some times. So that was unpredictable to me. I wasn't playing along with my beat at all. It was just kind of like, I'm going to hit go, and what that makes me feel as I'm singing, I'm going to like play along with that. So this was like a very, it was like a very playful set for me, even though like the context and the vibe wasn't like playing. But yeah.
What you just said about the drums was actually like one of my favorite parts of that piece you just played. Like and as like I sort of aged as a drummer, I've come to love the idea of like implied rhythm. And I remember like just having my mind blown in a drum lesson once when I learned what ghost notes were, and just the idea of like the feel of it. And so the song just felt really good, and like you established a really nice groove without having anything busy drum wise. And even though you could have done all sorts of things with the drums, it was just implied, and it was very present without like being up in your face. And so that it felt really nice groove wise.
Well, how prepared were you with the lyrics? Is this something that you wrote recently? Like, I'm always kind of fascinated by that process, because I struggle with it.
Yeah, so I have this book that it's like a leather-bound book. I have many leather-bound books, and you can tell by the Mars Volta sticker and the Apple sticker on the back of it. and I have a Commerce Bank pen inside of it that I got this when I was going to college at Illinois State University in Central Illinois, and it was gifted to me. There's like some weird there's like a Revolution tattoo sticker in there from this. Yeah, so this is an old lyric book, and I've been using it because I was actually the lead singer of a band. Yeah, there's got to be like a corn sticker somewhere in here. I was the lead singer of a band that I never actually sang for. It was this band called Long Ships that then Long Ships turned into Odyssey, and then Odyssey turned into Orman Lang. And Orman Lang was one of my best friend Kevin's band, and I moved away to England, and Orman Lang carried on and just became an instrumental project. And eventually Orman Lang kind of morphed into Fade, which was a musical project that I drummed for. But the precipice of all of that in college was I don't want to play drums anymore. I want to sing. And so I wrote a 10-part album that kind of tells the story of Alcides, which is the other name for Hercules, and kind of stories of his epic battles, but then also incorporated the concept of battles and fights from current culture and things that I was experiencing when I was in college. And so a very formative movie for me that kind of like shocked me and jarred me was Requiem for a Dream. And that idea of that battle with drug addiction and people failing to fight that, and the things that they can be coaxed into. And the song right before this song on that album was about Medusa and the seduction of Medusa and encountering Medusa and the concept of sirens being able to convince you to do anything and act out of character. And so there was that song about kind of like historical context of seduction and manipulation of your id and your ego and who you are and who you believe you are. And then there was this song that was like, here's what it can look like in current day. Like, drugs can be a Medusa. They can manipulate you. They can change you to not be the version of yourself that you want to be. And that was inspired by Requiem for a Dream. So I didn't write these recently. These were like 12 years ago. This was like 12 years ago, Teddy, when I was writing like a Harry Potter rap album and trying to be the like Circa Survive-esque Anthony Green frontman for a band called Odysseys or Long Ships or whatever the hell Orman Lang is what it ended up becoming. But that's where those lyrics came from. Yeah,
that's great story.
That was a truly beautiful set. That was a very beautiful night.
Really, really happy to have you on, Adam. And if anybody hasn't checked out Human Strange yet, the duo of Phil and Adam, definitely go check it out. Give it a listen. Make yourself a cup of coffee and spend some time with the handwritten lyrics on the back of the vinyl, and really dive into the liner notes and live within these albums. They're really wonderful things to spend time with, as is Adam and as is Phil. So really couldn't be happier with how tonight went. So before we kind of like close up, Adam, any projects that are in the works for Human Strange that, maybe viewers that if they want to sink their teeth into some new stuff coming out soon or coming out in the distant future, anything you guys are working on that could be coming out soon?
I mean, yes, we are working on our third album. We will have it wrapped up probably within the next 6 months. But more importantly, man, we want to play some shows. Like, I think Phil's feeling the itch too. Like, I think, man, like this is wonderful doing this, but man, we all need to see each other in the flesh again. Like, I think priority number one for this band, as soon as it's back on, like we are there. Like, we want to play some fucking shows.
Hell yeah.
See actual humans.
Yeah, and I am proud of the fact that we've released more albums than shows. I mean, that, and Adam, of course, thank you so much for being here, and thank you to all of our guests for listening to our banter. And now we have fear added to the list, and maybe tears. And hopefully Darren Aronofsky approves of all of that. I think he would.
And Heineken too, of course. We want Heineken to approve of us as well and continue to sponsor us and provide the Jets.
In another dimension, I would have been drinking Lowenbrau with you guys. I'm a Lowenbrau kind of guy.
Ooh.
I don't know if you know what Lowenbrau is, but it's a poor man's Heineken.
Hell yeah.
Well, we just want to thank our viewers. And if you want to hit us up, drop us a comment in the YouTube comments or send us an email at etherwavespodcast@gmail.com. And thank you once again. And we'll see you soon. And let us know if you want to be a guest in season 2. That is in the works. So thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Etherwaves.